Here with Joy of Coding. One of the questions that I get asked a ton from students is, what language should I learn? And so I wanted to talk a little bit to you today about how you can distinguish yourself so that you can really nail your dream job and find the right space for you in terms of developing yourself as a programmer and becoming successful and becoming a professional. So there's lots of lists out there that talk about, oh, you should learn Python, you should learn Java, you should learn Scala or JavaScript or Node.js or React, blah, 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 blah. There's PHP, there's alphabet soup out there, right? There's so many programming languages. And which one should you choose? Where should you start? Where should you begin? And so my advice, and I've been helping students learn how to program for over a decade now. I have a ton of students that have come through the systems that I use to teach how to program, and they've gotten jobs. And many of them start with the same question: what should I learn? Where should I start first? And so my advice is to change your perspective a little bit so that you are focusing on where you want to go, because everybody has access to these lists of what are the hot languages, where are the jobs right now, right? And so really what you want to find is the programming languages that are going to help you get where you want to go, because that's how you're going to differentiate yourself, and that's how you're going to find where you are uniquely able to excel and contribute, is those projects and those languages that serve those projects that really speak to you and where you can uniquely offer the world in terms of programming. And so there's a couple different ways you can think about this. One is, there's always going to be another programming language just around the corner that's new, that's hot, that's shining, that everybody's going to jump on that bandwagon. So, yes, you want to pay attention to where languages are going, but there's always going to be another one. So really, you don't want to be chasing those languages. Ideally, you want to develop the skills in yourself to be able to learn and adapt to any programming language. That's where you want to get, because computer science and programming, software development, web development, data science, they always change. Every year there's new languages, right? So you want to have the core essential fundamentals so that you can grow regardless of the language that's there. And the good news is that that's totally possible. There are foundational ideas there. The other thing is finding the right language for you based on where you want to go, right? So languages are like tools in a toolbox. Would you pick up a screwdriver to hammer in a nail? No, right? You are going to pick up a hammer because that's the best tool for the job. And so languages are kind of like tools in your toolbox. And so you want to pick the right language for you, for your tool in your toolbox. Now, in terms of general learning how to program, if you're starting from the very beginning, I personally often recommend Python. Now, there's a lot of debate on this, right? So some people are top-down learners and some people are bottom-up learners. What does that mean? So a top-down learner, this is the perspective that I usually approach because I find that it's the most accessible to the widest number of people. So a top-down approach, you might start with a super high-level language like Python, and then as you get, it's great because you get some fast results and you get some wins and you see it working. It's really easy. It's much easier on a high-level language like Python to see the results of what you're coding. And that's great because it inspires you and motivates you to keep going and to keep learning, because sometimes the lower level details, they can be a little bit more challenging to master. And so it's helpful to have that quick win in there in your back pocket to give you that confidence and perseverance to keep going, to keep pushing through. Like, yes, I can do this, I can do this. So I always recommend students start with Python just to learn the basics. But it's a starter language only. It's not the end language, although it could be, right? There's plenty of jobs in Python. But I think even someone looking for a job in Python is going to be a more well-rounded programmer if they have exposure to other programming languages. It's kind of like when you learn a foreign language, your second language is the hardest, and then each language after that becomes easier because you're building kind of a mental model of how to communicate. And the same is true of programming. When you pick up your first language, you're learning the basics. You're learning, okay, what is a loop and what is it for? Why do I need functions? How do I use variables, right? Like, you're learning all these simple basics. And so when you put those together, you've got your first language, but now you want to grow and you want to be comfortable with whatever language comes next. And so the way I recommend students do that is by branching out. Java, object oriented is a great solid starter because so many languages are based in that space. Could be C, C++. It really depends on where you want to go and how you want to grow. What kind of projects do you want to be working on? Do you want to be working on websites, mobile apps, systems programming, right? It really depends where you're going to go from there. And so I would urge you to think through and think about what types of projects inspire you? Like, why are you learning to program? Why do you want to learn to program? What is your dream? What do you want to work on? And then you can step back from there, what languages to do. If you're a bottom up type learner and you get really excited about maybe booting up your computer into BIOS or working in assembly, right? These are super low level. So high level to low level is high level is closer to English. It can't be English because English is too ambiguous, right? For example, I'm all about that bass. Well, guess what? It's also spelled like bass, right? Are you about fishing or are you about, a large string instrument? So English is too ambiguous. So high level languages are close to English, but they're not English because they can't be. English is just too, natural languages like English are just too ambiguous. And then the low level languages are as close as possible to the computer language. The native computer language is machine code or binary, and that's zeros and ones. And so assembly or C would be bottom up approaches to learning how to program. And so those are totally valid. I've had extensive conversations with other educators in this space, and people have very passionate views on this. For some people, the assembly to C to Java to Python kind of sequence really works for them and really speaks to them, and that's wonderful for them. But what I've found in working with hundreds of students and helping them learn how to program is that top down is a little bit more accessible for the average person, and so that's why I go that route. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with either route. You want to find the sequence of steps that works for you. And the good news is when you find a language to start with, just go with it. Remember, you're trying to learn the basics, loops, functions, how to use variables and ifs, things like that, how to just create something in that language. But it's your starter language. Whatever your first language is, don't assume it's your last and plan to jump and hop to other things. But you want those basics of, how do you create functions and loops and variables that serve your needs and solve problems first before you dive into those upper level, higher level languages like the web or mobile app development, things like that, because then you're starting to grow as a software developer and they're a higher learning curve in terms of the frameworks that you're trying to build. But without the essentials, those basics, it's going to be really, really hard to learn those languages. Okay, so I think to summarize, you want to find the language that works for you. There's always going to be shiny new languages out there. And so the best programming language for you is going to be the language that serves the types of projects that you want to be a part of. Or it might just be a throwaway starter language so that you learn the basics and are ready to level up to some of these languages that are a little bit less accessible and that are a little bit harder to learn, more challenging, so that you've got this baseline confidence that you already know the basics before you dive into them. And so I think really it's finding the best programming language for you that takes you to the projects that you want to go and really to help you become a better coder, right? What is going to inspire you to keep going? And that's going to be the right language for you. And so if you enjoyed this live today, I hope you did. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you want to talk more and chat about your own personal coding journey, there's a link with this video to sign up for a free chat. I'm happy to consult and chat and see if there's ways that you can really be more efficient in your learning and really targeted so that you can develop your portfolio in ways that'll lead you to the coding jobs of your dreams. All right, well, it's great to see you today and take care.